Lenten season is, that march to Easter. It really is just a focusing time to bring us the right hearts and the right perspective into Easter week, Holy Week. And I was thinking that, as a preacher, you look at your year calendar and you want to kind of balance things out. You want to be able to teach from the Old Testament. You want to be able to teach from the New Testament. You want to teach from the letters, from maybe the Pauline letters or some of the letters from the apostles. You want to definitely teach from the gospel. You want to teach on some topics, some things that are relevant in our lives. And I always look forward to this time because this is where we just zero in on some of the lessons by Jesus. Because you think about it this way, if Jesus only had 3 years to tell us and to kind of reset so many of the misconceptions that we have about who God is and what His will is and His character and what He wants for us. And Jesus knew that had gotten completely out of whack by the time He showed up. And He goes, I got 3 years and there's so many things I want to tell you about who your Heavenly Father is and what His plan is for your life, and that there's hope. There's hope for you. There's hope that's going to impact you today in this life, and there's hope that's going to carry you into everlasting. And so Jesus, you got to know that every time He had an opportunity to speak, they were important lessons, and we should take note. And He would say often, let those who have ears to hear, hear. Because it's going to change your life. It's going to change your perspective. And so we're going to look today at a well-known portion of the Gospels called the Beatitudes. If you have your Bibles, you can go to Matthew chapter 5. And we're going to dig into this. Now, I'm not going to completely break that down about which ones, what it's exactly talking about. We'll talk a little about that. But we're really going to talk about the whole concept that He's trying to get across. So we're going to kind of look at this as a whole package. So Matthew 5, verses 1 through 12. Read along with me. I'm reading out the New American Standard Bible. It says, when Jesus saw the crowds, He went up onto the mountain, and after He sat down, His disciples came to Him. And He's talking about, He's not just talking about the 12, He's talking about many that were coming after Him. Students, that's what disciples were. It says, He opened His mouth and began to teach them. And I want to stop right there, and I just want you to understand something that's powerful about saying He opened His mouth and spoke. You might say, well, that's kind of, do you really have to say He opened His mouth to speak? That's kind of implied in the word speak, right? But I want you to understand something about this. Is the same Jesus who is opening His mouth here was actually present in Genesis. In fact, the Apostle John, when he writes in his gospel at the beginning, he said the Word was Word was in the world at the beginning. The Word was in the beginning. And he says the Word was Jesus. And that tells us something about the position that Jesus holds within the Trinity. The creative force that is the totality of who God is, that Jesus is the Word that is spoken. And that's powerful because in the beginning, it says God spoke, let there be light, right? And light came into the universe. Light flooded into the whole universe. Stars are flying out into the galaxies. And they take shape and they start to swirl and planets are being formed and light came into the void. There was nothing before that. But it was through the agency of the Word that is spoken that God the Father comes up with the concept, but it's through Jesus the Son through which creation actually happens. He spoke, and that's when it happened. So what's powerful about that is that every time that Jesus incarnate, that means when He came into this world and was with us, and He spoke, it's the same power of God that flung stars out into the heavens. It's the same power of God that formed mountains and seas. It's the same power of God that created the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. It's the same God that breathed life into humanity and made humans. So when Jesus spoke, when he opened his mouth, you've got to get just this anticipation that something incredible, something powerful is going to be spoken that brings life, that brings renewal, that brings change into the world. So it's important that we stop and we think how powerful it is that it says, once again, Almighty God, through his Son, the Word, has opened his mouth, and something's going to happen. Something's going to be said that's going to be life-transforming. And this is true. He began to teach them, saying, and this is, I'm sure you're familiar with this portion, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." So here in the United States of America, we've kind of created our own Beatitudes that goes something like this, and you probably add to this. We might say, "Blessed are those who work hard so they can play later," because that's kind of the concept we have, right? Work hard, play later. Or you might say, "Blessed are those who prioritize themselves and their safety over that of their neighbors," because you know it's a dog-eat-dog world, and take care of yourself first. That's kind of a thought that is permeating across the nation. Or, "Blessed are those that accumulate the most toys before they die," right? Or maybe something, "Blessed are the ones who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. Blessed are them." Those are kind of the axioms that we use in this world, and that we've kind of really clung to. And some of these sound very reasonable to our ears. They sound like, well, yeah. I mean, they deserve that. They worked for that. They earned that. And some of them kind of make you twinge a little and say, that doesn't sound quite right. I don't know if I want to put that on my shirt, you know. But we often view those at the top, at the so-called top, and we think how blessed they are. That's how we kind of view things. So the people in Jesus' time also struggled with wealth and inequality. So a lot of what Jesus is talking about, he's talking to people that they're dealing with inequality. They're dealing with a powerful empire. And this powerful empire is easy to worship. It is so powerful. It is so stable. And it is just, the Roman Empire has gone all over the map. And it's easy to go, wow, I think I want to get on board that. And that's pretty impressive how they take care of things. There was even a big desire for self-security, even at the expense of others. And I think about that snapshot of what culture looked like, and I think, well, it doesn't feel like things have changed a whole lot today. I think it's easy for us to kind of fall into some of those same traps of stressing about wealth inequality, as if you can't find joy in all stratospheres, you know? That somehow only joy and happiness comes at the top, and so I can't be happy anywhere else. That's such a lie. Joy has nothing to do with things and wealth.
Amen.
And so that's something that we see people buy into. And we do the same thing with our country. I think that we're very, very patriotic. This is the Midwest especially. And we love America. And we're very proud of what we have accomplished. We're not proud of everything. I think there's always debate there. But there's a point where we begin to worship America. And we were never meant to worship America. We are rather meant to worship God and let that relationship with God create a nation. We also I think, deal with this self-security at the expense of others. Our culture really today stresses you. You. Take care of yourself. Earn for yourself. Create for yourself. This idea of sacrificing for one another, it just doesn't seem compatible. In Sunday school with the middle schoolers, we were looking at 1 John chapter 3, and it talks about this is how you know real love. We know real love because what God has done for us in His Son. We know this. And if you're going to say that you love one another, then you better show. You better actually love one another. You can't just say it. You got to actually do it. And what is love? How is love different than like? Well, like receives. If I like someone or I like something, it's giving something to me. But love is something I'm willing to sacrifice for. That's the difference. And so if I tell you I love you, I'm telling you I'm willing to sacrifice for you. It's not just a receive. I'm giving to you. That's the big difference. And this is what we're trying to figure out here. What is Jesus trying to tell us in these Beatitudes? And I think it comes down to the current understanding of the word blessed. Right here, we tend to lean towards defining blessed as fortunate, right? That's one of the definitions of blessed as far as the Greek word. We'll talk about that. But we kind of lean towards fortunate almost as if, aren't they lucky? Things just seem to have fallen in place for them. They must be blessed. That's the way we kind of look at it. They got that house because it came on the market at the right time at the right price. And things never happen like that for me. They must be blessed. So we think of it in terms of how fortunate they are. And even the word fortunate is from the same root word as fortune, right? So there's this concept of it. It's something about material gain. But there's more to the word. And as with many perspectives, Jesus is flipping everything upside down. He loves to do this. And he challenges us to really think about what is important in life. Because the Christian is supposed to be different. To live differently than the unbelieving world. So Jesus, it's very careful to tell you that who has joined him on the mountainside? The disciples. It says that. Why? Because he's talking to the church. He's not talking to unbelievers. He's talking to the followers. He's talking to the students. He's talking to those who have accepted him already as at least their teacher. And so he's talking to us. And he's saying, I'm going to tell you a different way that you need to look at your life. That maybe won't make you discouraged all the time. That won't beat you down all the time. I'm not going to change the circumstances of your life, but I'm going to give you a different viewpoint that allows you to soar above it somewhat, like an eagle does. So let's talk a little about the Greek word used. It's makarios. And it's often used to convey a sense of those fortunate in their wealth, or even health or stature, fame. But Jesus is using this word to make a point. He's using this because it's going to get their attention. Because it's also defined as happy. I'm going to give you a different definition this morning. That's in the yellow here. This is what we're going to work on as we kind of move through this whole series, but also this morning, next week especially. That blessed, Makaros, means that Jesus' point of view, we are divinely favored. That means it's of God. God has looked upon you and has favored you. He has loved you and He's lavished on you. Our Abba Father has done this. And that act by God, that relationship that God has given to us, that brings about, elicits great joy, peace, and fulfillment for us. That's blessed. Okay? That's divinely blessed. And it doesn't have to do with your checking account, it doesn't have to do with your car, your house, it doesn't have to do with anything like that. It just simply has to do with your relationship with God through His Son, Jesus. That means that you can lose it all, be standing out in the middle of the desert, and you could be blessed. You could be in the middle of the storm of life and things are falling apart around you, and it doesn't change your relationship with God. You are still blessed. You are still favored by Him. You are still valued by Him. You are still worth everything He's ever done for you. So, Jesus is, I love this, He's taking the world out of the reward. See, we tend to look at the reward as what the world can gain us. If I do everything right, then I get something worldly out of it. And He's saying, no, I'm going to take the world out of the reward. And I'm going to restore our understanding that God Himself has looked upon you, He has favored you, He's noticed you, He's approved you, and He is going to reward you. That's where you're blessed. That's a big deal. That's a big change. This is along the same thoughts of laying up your crowns in heaven. To know that I'm not looking for the rewards of this world anymore. I don't really care what certificates I get, what pats on the back I get, or what trophies I get. They're nice. But to know that God has seen me, that God has smiled upon me, that God has said, well done, good and faithful servant. When I begin to understand that that is a far greater reward that I could ever get by this world, I will have jumped in my life to a new plateau. So, I hear you back there. Help myself out here. So this is why it initially sounds so backwards when Jesus says, "Blessed are you." Because if you're looking for worldly rewards, then this doesn't make sense at all. None of these Beatitudes make any sense if you're looking for worldly rewards. But if you're recognizing what I really want is this relationship with God, made possible through Christ, and all that gives me, then all these things that he's talking about are, in spite of these things, I'm still blessed. I want you to read it that way from now on. Okay? So the world doesn't value humility, does it? Someone who has true humility probably isn't even looked at in the world. They don't value humility. They don't stand out in a crowd. They're always behind everybody because they're always putting others in front of them. They don't really value humility. They don't necessarily value compassion because it doesn't make sense to a world that says you're trying to gain, so why are you giving it away? It doesn't always it doesn't always respect selflessness because it's in the same vein. Just it doesn't seem to compute for them because what they really value in the world around us is achievement and productivity, right? Achievement and productivity. I thought that was interesting when Caleb was doing his cultural studies, and they were telling me, he shared a little about that in the interview, was they're trying to tell him, listen, you're going to find a big difference in something as simple as going to the grocery market down in Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, because what may take you 15 minutes to get in and out here, because we value productivity, efficiency, right? May take you 3 hours to go shopping down there. And sure enough, this week he called, he goes, oh, they were so right. It takes forever to get through the grocery store. Of course, he said, of course, I don't know what I'm reading, so I haven't had to ask people. But it does. And the reason is because they value relationship. And so for them, the idea of going to the market is a chance to interact with people. Shopping is the excuse. Okay? Now, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'll tell you something. when Stacy and I, first 5-6 years of our marriage, we moved 5 times from 2 different towns 5 times. I'm pretty outgoing. I make friends pretty easy. It was just a big adventure to me. I didn't think about what it was doing to Stacy so much. I never really asked myself about that. We finally moved to Garden City, and we lived in Garden City temporarily for 13 years. And because we always thought we were leaving at some point, but it just didn't happen for a long time. But it was probably year 3. We'd been in Garden City for 3 years. We went to Dillon's, and I was in a hurry, and I was getting frustrated because we kept running into people from church and from school and from all over the place. And every aisle, stop and talk, stop and talk, stop and talk. And I'm like, we got things to do, you know. And we get in the car finally, and I'm like, whew. And I turn around, and Stacy's crying over there in the passenger seat. And I was like, what did I say? Oh, I really messed up somewhere. I have no idea what I said. And I was like, did I do something? And she says, we've never lived somewhere long enough that it took a long time to go through the store. And I realized that relationships for her took a little longer to build, and she treasured that. And that was important to her. And I don't know that I still like to get through stores fast, but I'm conscious more about things like that. So, the world doesn't necessarily value these things as much as achievement, productivity. Those things seem to be, especially a Midwest or I would say just American, especially. I'm sure that's probably true in first world countries a lot. Just productivity, efficiency, achievement. It's what we value as a culture. But I want to tell you something that Jesus is trying to change. And when he's taking the world out of the reward, he's saying, I'm going to tell you something about God. About where you stand with him. That you are, in spite of all these things that are going on in your life, and in spite of what you consider as inequalities, and maybe there's some truth to that, whatever, in spite of all that, you are still blessed. Because God's love for you is so great. And so, God created you to be loved by him, to live in harmony with him and with each other. I say that because of this. The world goes after achievement, productivity, and efficiency, gain, as if it's going to bless them. But they find that once they have all that, they're still not feeling blessed. Not in this core way that they're hoping for. When I'm talking about this blessed, remember talking about this thing that elicits true joy and fulfillment and value. And they're finding that I can get everything in this world and I can rise to the top, and I may not still ever find that. And there's a reason for that. And it all goes back to the very creation of you. That you were created by God to have a relationship with him, and you're meant to fit in that way. And nothing else fits that way. And in that fitting with God, you find joy, peace, love. You find value and self-respect, and you just know who you are when that's there. So the world can search and search and search after these things. And they can go after all these things, but they won't find blessedness. That's why he can write this. Blessed are you, even though you're in this. So how are we blessed? Well, let's get into some of these real quick, and we won't spend a lot of time with these, but, in every one of these, he's going to say, blessed are you who are in this state or in this circumstance, and then here's the blessing. Okay, so the first one, he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of heaven. That's your blessing. And he says, blessed are those who mourn. They're going to get comfort. Blessed are the gentle. They're going to inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. They shall be satisfied or filled. I'm trying to catch up with all these. You just go through all these. These are the things that we're going to get. These are the blessedness we're going to see. We're going to be blessed with the kingdom of heaven. This is both a present reality and a future reality. This is something that is affecting us now and forevermore. And we're going to be blessed with that. That is a sense of presence. It's a citizenship that we have, the kingdom of heaven. The comfort that we get is from God himself. That we inherit the earth. And that when all this fades and goes to dust, you know who's still standing? Those who have given their lives to Christ. We're going to be filled. We're going to receive mercy. We will see God. That's a reward, by the way. We will be called the children of God. And then it ends again, full circle, with the kingdom of heaven. Okay? These are the things that we're blessed with. These are not things that you get from the world. These are things that only God has the power to gift you. So why do we call them the Beatitudes? Well, the Latin version of the Bible, maybe you didn't know this, but in Latin it's called Beatus. That's where the word comes from. Beatus is blessedness, and kind of tude is being in blessedness. So Beatitudes is just how we live in blessedness. And you might say that this is the way that we as believers live in the world. Along with our sins, we have shut. Now, here's the theology part of it. When we confessed and repented of our sins, and we handed those to the Lord, and said, Lord, take all this mess. Take every wrong, take every mess, every mistake, whatever you want to call it. I'm just handing it all to you. When we did that, we shucked it. We got rid of it. But we also got rid of the rewards of this world as things that drive us. And I don't know that we always understood that when we gave our lives to the Lord, is inside of giving up our sins, we're also giving up the reward system of this world. And if you don't do that, you will still be chasing after the world's things. And you're going to find it doesn't work with your spiritual walk. There's going to be a tension there because that's not the things that Jesus has for you. He has something greater. And he's going to be constantly saying, let go of that. Just let go of that so I can give you something better. Quit trying to go down that route. I've got a better way for you to go. And so if we can instead understand part of giving our lives to Christ is also giving up those rewards and claiming the rewards of heaven. That's what my heart is set at. Paul says this in this letter to Colossians when he says, set your eyes on things above. That's a trajectory. That's where you're going to head. So there's a truth about that. We do that as coaches. We talk a lot about that. Whether you're shooting a basketball, throwing a football, golfing, whatever it is, where you're looking, your body has an ability to focus your energies toward that place you're looking. And if you take your eyes off that ball and you look somewhere else, it's a mess. So you keep your eyes on the things above. If you take your eyes off of what God has for you, your trajectory is all off. So we are now empowered and given value by our Creator, who is infinitely more just, good, gracious. I'm going to back up here. Oh, I took it away from you. I'm going to read to you. Eugene Peterson, he wrote the message, and again, I just kind of want to reiterate, he never meant that to be a translation of the Bible. He meant that to be a paraphrase, and it's his study tool. It's a good study tool that when he would read a portion of the Bible, the Scripture, he would rewrite it in a way that he felt God was talking to him about. So it's like a journal when you read it. That Eugene Peterson. Now, Eugene Peterson is a great theologian. He's a very smart guy, but it wasn't ever meant to be a translation, but it has a great perspective on things sometimes. And I want you to, he loves this portion. And so I'm going to read to you his paraphrase of this passage. Let this be just kind of a devotional for you. He says, you're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and his rule. You're blessed when you feel you've lost what is most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you. You're blessed when you're content with just who you are. No more, no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought. It's a great statement. You're blessed when you've worked up a good appetite for God. He's food and drink and the best meal you'll ever eat. You're blessed when you care. At the moment of being careful, means you're full of caring, you find yourselves being cared for. You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and your heart put right. Then you can see God in the outside world. You're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of how to compete and to fight. That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. You're blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. That persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. Not only that, count yourselves blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort, and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even, for though they don't like it, Jesus says, I do. And all heaven applauds, and know that you're in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this type of trouble as well. So here's the personal power of this passage as we just wrap up here. Jesus sees into your heart. Just like he looked at those people on that mountainside, he's got these people who have followed him up. That's a sacrificial act. They're ready. And he sees into their hearts. He knows their problems. He knows their struggles. Knows their hurts. And so he's speaking into that. Now, he sees you where you're sitting this morning. He sees exactly what you're going through. He knows your struggles. He knows your burdens. He knows your challenges and your fights. And he is aware of that. He knows the pressure you are under to look perfect, act perfect, and to live perfect lives. Anybody know that pressure? Acting perfect, it's an impossible aspiration. You can't get there. And he knows that has left many of us feeling like failures in our life. Like we don't stand a chance and that we aren't worth much. And this is a major problem in today's culture. Right? I'm going to say something. That the world loves to point out every flaw, every mistake, every stumble, and kind of rub our noses in it. Jesus sees this already, and that's not his tack. His is to offer love, support, encouragement, and a new plan. So he is saying this. Lift your head. For though the world has said differently, I am telling you that your God places a very high value on you. Places a very high value on you. You are worth, here, every miracle, every battle, and every sacrifice that God has made throughout the history of the Bible. He says you are worth it. And when I thought about that statement, I thought about all of that has happened before Jesus. That led up to the time, the fullness of time, that Jesus came into this world. You're talking about Noah's Ark. You're talking about reestablishing a whole people. You're talking about Abraham and calling Abraham and blessing his lineage. You're talking about Joseph. You're talking about Moses bringing the people out of captivity. All those huge events. The splitting of the Red Sea. To bringing down the walls of Jericho. We're talking about David taking down Goliath. We're talking about all kinds of great, great victories. We're talking about even in the hard times that God never forsook his people. That even when they had been scattered and put into captivity by Babylon and Assyria, they were still held together in God. a remnant was always there, and there would be a return where he'd bring them back. And you think of just about all of those circumstances. And in those moments, those were huge. They were life-changing moments. And there were big victories that God had. To think that all of that was achieved for you and I. For Jesus to say, all that has transpired before was worth it for you. And it has made this moment possible. So we have a real problem with being valued and understanding our own value. But Jesus is trying to say, listen, quit looking at the circumstances to measure whether you're blessed. Instead, you just need to know you have been claimed by God Almighty. And He loves you. And He values you. And you are divinely favored. You are loved, and you are lavished on by your Abba Father. Blessed are you. We'll just stand.